to another episode of the Friendship Podcast with me, Jong. Today, we have a very, very special guest. Uh, I know him as the Fresh Prince of Darkness, DJ Fresh Prince of Darkness. Right, one of the staples in the New York nightlife scene for decades.
Many years.
A couple of months. For many,
let's not
many.
say how many is many. Just
Well, we
many.
will not date.
But as Lucy Buttons likes to point out, I started that. When I started out, there was still like Friendster and
MySpace.
and yeah. So just to put a little date on it.
Yeah, but again, I know him as DJ Fresh Prince of Darkness, but more people know him as just Ron. So Ron, thank you very much for spending a little bit of time chatting with me.
Pleasure to be
about
here.
yourself.
It was worth the trip over.
I hope that the toll again. I got your tolls, and if the time difference is
No, the block and a half that I had to walk, there is a time zone that cuts through there.
100%. So we'll when you get back, that hour will be given back to you.
Okay.
But before we get into more of the fun stuff and more of the things that you have done both in nightlife and in day life, tell the people who you are and like who is the DJ Fresh Prince of Darkness.
Where do I start? Day job, I've been in IT forever. I was a hacker back in the day when it could still not serve real time for hacking. And then got into IT, cybersecurity, and now I run a company that does that, among other things. And nightlife wise, I got started DJing house parties in high school.
Oh, delightful.
And when I moved to New York, I was heavily involved in the goth, punk, and industrial scene.
There you go.
And started DJing clubs there. And I did Limelight, among others. There were a couple of nights that I did at CBGB's.
The classics.
Yeah. So I got in a good share of that. And around the end or the beginning of the 21st century, sounds super old, I started to get involved in the burlesque world. And that's been where I stayed.
And what was the impetus? Like, why DJing as a musical form of expression? Like, what was the driving force for that?
The Lord blessed me with a great love of music and a great inability to play music.
That's what I told.
I sound like a cat on any instrument or vocal or whatever. So it was basically I got to express my artistic impulses through the curation of music. A lot of it has to do. I mean, there's a lot that goes on. You're reading the room. The object is you want to keep people dancing because that's their appreciation of what
momentum,
you're doing.
right?
So you're reading the room. You're sort of kind of playing to them, and that's one of the reasons I love go-go too. Is that you're actually working with the person that is on the go-go stage.
Oh, wow.
So you're sort of again reading what they're into, whatever. But you're also kind of timing with like, okay, I've done 3. High BPM songs in a row, and they are starting to sweat. Let me bring it down a little bit and do something a little sexier, whatever. And then
Shit is like,
kinda,
what, 15, 30 minutes, so they need to catch their breath too.
Right. So you're just kind of, you give them a break, and then you give them the opportunity to shake whatever they want to shake.
Delightful.
And, yeah.
See, those are the things that, as a regular nightlife goer, regular purveyor of burlesque, there's nuances to these things. It's not just plugging in your laptop, plugging in your iPhone, and press it play. There's the curation part, as you mentioned, and specifically towards that. What's the DJ Fresh Prince of Darkness brand in terms of the music that you play? Right, you've mentioned goth, pop, industrial, pop, rock. Pop.
I would say in the rock world. So we've got our goth, industrial, punk, like classic rock, early aughts indie music I love. But then you have when you're doing a go-go set, you also have to be conscious of what they're into. I had an experience where I was doing one of the burlesque nights, and it was being pitched as a beach party.
Interesting.
Beach party, yeah. And you may have been there. And there was a go-go. She was apparently really big into reggaeton.
Oh, sweet.
And I mean, I'm Latino. I can do reggaeton. This was pitched as a beach party, so I did a whole surf set for the go-go who was really into reggaeton. And like after the set, I was like, Lucy actually mentioned it to me, and she's like, "Oh shit, really?" So ever since then, I've made it a point to, before a go-go set, I'll check in and be like, "What's your vibe?"
Got it.
Like, I don't need to know what songs you want to hear. I just want to know what's the vibe.
That's all. I mean, and that is, I think nowadays particularly, it's in the zeitgeist. It's every person's tongue. It's like vibes first,
right?
Private vibes first. So
well, because they have to enjoy the set as much as I'm enjoying 100%. The set.
Yeah, and the fun thing about the world of electronic music, the world of DJs, there's always a lot of, let's say, controversy about what makes a DJ. Like, in your words, like, what's a DJ? What makes you a real DJ versus more of, those other, let's say, posers out there that, just has an extra grand to buy a couple of mixers.
I won't diss posers. What I will say is that there are different flavors of DJs for sure. You go to a House of Yes or whatever, and you're seeing somebody who is literally making music out of other music. That's not my flavor. I wish it was. I've never learned how to do that, and I would be terrible at it. Mine is more on the curation side, like I said, like, kind of setting a mood, setting a vibe for a room, watching who's dancing, seeing what's going on there, and kind of giving them what they want, and just making sure that the people who are there are having a good time.
100%.
What I will diss is the playlist, where you set it up ahead of time, and whatever's going on in the room, the playlist does what it's doing.
See, that's even just like that minor change in mindset. One is like, it's still a curated list.
Yeah.
But it's more of like,
it's not in response to anything.
That is 100. I think that is the most apt way of saying it. It's not interactive,
let's say.
Yeah, it's just set and forget.
Right.
It's way different, where feel it out and adjust, move towards whatever, the audience, the performers rock. So that's pretty awesome. And in terms of gigs too, and that's the reason why I usually bring friends on the pod, because again, we've worked together so many gigs for many years, but we never really have like an opportunity to really look at the history of work that people have done. It's like, I'm also curious, like, what has been your most favorite memorable gig that you've done or is still doing? Like, or what are your favorite stuff to do to really share your passion for DJing?
Well, I've been doing it long enough that there's a lot of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, back in the day, the Starshine Burlesque show was great. I used to do a lot of the early Wasabasco shows.
Bell House, if I'm not mistaken.
Bell House and Southpaw. Oh, for those who remember that far back.
Real.
Southpaw is now a kids
venue, like a daycare.
Yeah, like, not a daycare, but like a kids discovery center or something.
Oh, interesting.
And,
okay.
The stuff that used to go out on at Southpaw would make those kids just vomit, I think. But yeah, those are back in the day. I mean, I do the burlesque festival every year, and that's just a lot of fun to do.
And that's a big event.
It is a big event,
right? So that's a yearly New York burlesque institution, multiple day festival. Right. So that's a pretty solid gig.
So I do 2 of the 4 nights. I trade off with DJ Momotaro, and that's one of those things that, because it's a just this humongous production. Like, one of the nights has 25 acts, the other one has about 20. There's a lot of prep that goes into it. There's a lot of work that goes into it. I DJ the Golden Pasties every year. So I like to come up with, when the pasties are presented, I like to come up with music that's appropriate to the category.
Oh, awesome.
So there's a lot of work that goes into it, and it's all appreciated in the end, and I feed off of that.
Awesome. And yeah, you mentioned it a lot, and this is, in the end, still kind of like semi-educational podcast. Like, we mentioned prep a lot. Just tell us a little bit about like what does prep look like for, the things that you do, because like people, you know, they might only see the chords, the connections, the mic and the playlist, but they don't see
Yeah,
the admin behind it.
what people see is, a performer goes up and she's doing her thing, or they're doing their thing,
Mm.
excuse me, um, and nobody's paying attention to the music other than how they're performing
Mhm.
to it. Um, there's cues that go into it. There's uh, there's a lot of prep work that
Mhm.
I get sent basically like 25 tracks for a show.
Mhm.
I have to go through them, make sure they're labeled properly, put them in the proper order,
Mhm.
and then just make sure that I'm cueing them when they need it cued,
Mhm.
because this performer wants to be. In the end, it all breaks down to on intro or in position,
Got it.
but a lot of times in position can mean a lot of things. Like this one wants a blackout, and they're in a certain pose
Mhm.
and blah blah blah, and then especially at the Brooklyn Bowl,
Okay.
I'm in the back of the theater. So when it's blacked out, I'm really hard pressed to see when they're in that pose. So you're kind of working with that. Um, and just, things like that kind of
So there's
could make or break the show. I mean, you could actually, somebody wanted their act cued in position,
Mhm.
and they didn't say, or you didn't know, or whatever. You play it when they're introed, and then suddenly, like, the whole flow of the act is gone.
True. Yeah, and of course, like I think one of the things that we've seen in different shows before, possibly a fear for not only the DJ or the MC, but also the performers, like miscue and then like, oh, let's start that over again.
Right.
Right. That's there. It's it's all fun and games, but it's still like sometimes there's only like one opportunity for that first impression to really get your act running really well.
Right. And to the audience member, if you have to start the act over, they're just like, oh, haha, that's
Mhm.
fun or whatever. But to the performer and to me as the
Mhm.
person who is responsible for running that music, it's just,
Yeah.
it's tragic.
Right. And yeah, so we're hearing there's a script, there's a program that need you prep. People send you stuff. What are some of like the pitfalls, the horror stories? Like somebody sending you a WAV file, somebody sending you an AAC file, somebody's MP3, and then it's like,
The M4P format
oof.
that comes off of iTunes. The P stands for protected.
Mhm.
So that means I can't play it. You can
Mm.
only play it on your
On your
iTunes. All the other ones just kind of work, and
Mhm.
it's fine. And then there's the performers who send their music late. And then, like,
Of
week of
course.
show, I'm doing all my prep, and then I don't have 5 performers' music. And, then you're scrambling. And then I have to email the producers, because I'm not going to.
Yeah, I guess right after the performance.
I would look like the asshole if I'm like, hey, why didn't you send your music? So I'm like, I email the producers, and I'm like, these are the people who are delinquent. Get me their music.
What's the ideal scenario? You get everything how many days before a show so that you can like really prepare?
Depends on the show. I mean, like the ones that I do monthly, like when there's 4 or 5 acts,
Mhm.
like if I get it a day or two in advance,
Totally
that's fine. For Burlesque Fest, I like to have it at least a week in advance,
Yeah.
because there's a lot to
It's 20
go through.
plus and 2 days.
Yeah.
Too. So
Right.
it's awesome. And I know like you've probably recognized a lot of these performers already.
Hmm.
But you mentioned a festival with 20, maybe 40 performers.
Yeah.
Like,
And many of them from out of state, and some even out of the country.
so that's how's the prep for that? Understanding like, are you just like trusting the program list, like, or the next person is this is our show and that's it?
One of the good things about Burlesque Fest is that we do a run through the day of.
Mhm.
So I'm there easily like 10 hours before the show starts. And we go through the entire show. Each performer comes up and does a rough on their set. And for me, one of the most, I think one of my favorite things about that experience is watching the rough
Mhm.
and then watching the actual performance. and seeing how wildly different they were.
Mhm.
Like sometimes when you're watching the rough, you're like, what even are they doing? And then suddenly in the actual performance, like, wow, that was amazing.
I mean, it is a rehearsal for a reason, but
Right.
also I'm assuming that the crowd gives the performer so much
Exactly.
more energy that it kind of
Yes.
like
The crowd, the lighting. I mean, we don't do it with real
yeah.
lighting. I mean, during the run throughs, they're also giving the lighting coordinator
Mhm.
an idea of what they want to do. So the lighting coordinator's, kind of also doing a rough of what they're going to be doing for the
Mhm.
lights and all that.
Awesome. And speaking of rehearsals, rough tech, more on the nerdy stuff, more on the actual tools of the trade. Um, what are the tools that you use? Your favorite things that you use on the daily, and then for me, my question is like, are there certain dream gears that you are like looking forward to upgrading towards?
Again, if I was on the more music making side of it, I
Mm.
could give you a whole list of things I'd love to have. On my end, I just use my standard laptop and I run an app called Virtual DJ.
Mhm.
And that gives me everything I need. I have the ability to play music from online sources. I
Mhm.
have my repository of my
Dope.
go-tos and all that. Um, so it's easy. I started back in the day where and when I was DJing house parties, I was in Miami, so you had a car.
Mhm.
So you had your record crates.
Ooh.
You had your you had to bring your own DJ booth because you're DJing a house
Mhm.
party. They don't have a DJ booth. Your mixer, your PA
Speakers.
system,
Uh-huh.
like the whole nine. Um, and it's come a long way. And even when I started DJing in the goth scene, you were going through house systems, but you still had to bring like 5 books of CDs with you to make sure you had everything you needed. And it's just such a different world that when somebody's like, "Oh, you should play this," and I'm like, "Yeah, actually, that would work really
Pop in.
well," and I can just pull it in, and I don't have to be the guy that's like, "I didn't bring that CD with me. I didn't bring
Mhm.
that record with me."
Yeah, I think that's I mean, technology has gone so far along the ways now, and then it has democratized a lot of these seemingly technical, highly creative uh, 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 gigs or work like DJing. But you know, to that point, like, how would you kind of like advise people that are trying to get better at the DJing part of it? Because like, again, it's so democratized, you can do it with one program in your laptop. You know, what are the good exercises to get better
I
at
mean, you
the
have to
craft?
have the love for music. You have to learn the music, and then what I do in terms of skill wise is I
Mhm.
try and do beat matching.
Mhm.
I try and make sure songs fade in and out as they're without being like a harsh cutover
Mhm.
if possible. um, just kind of get familiar with. Basically, you want to know how songs start and end
Mhm.
so that you can make them kind of flow together
Yes.
rather than have anything jarring in the
Mhm.
middle.
Yeah, so you just need to. Well, that is practice. Like
Yeah,
you listen to it, and in terms of like DJing, you
and
don't have to be like a super scratch master if you don't need to be, but you just need to have like.
right. And if that's where you want to go, I don't have the technical advice to
Mhm.
give of how you can get good at that. With my brand,
Mhm.
just knowing your music is pretty much.
Yeah, no, no, yeah, I mean, developing your taste.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
and also like not just knowing the beginnings and the ends of songs, but knowing again what's working in the room, what's
Mhm.
not. Like I may have thought I'll cue up a song as my next song, and then suddenly I'm noticing like a crowd reaction,
Mhm.
or there's something about the song that I'm playing. I'm like, no, what works better with this, and then I'll pull up something else, and like at the last minute, and it ends up it worked
Yeah.
better as
Okay.
opposed to just you know
Yeah. I like.
I'm a human playlist.
I think that's a universal skill that is or transferable skill is like being able to read the room and react to the room and being able to note because like it's one thing to notice, it's one thing to act upon it, but also if you have that plus you got a good repository of taste and a good repository of things that you think would work.
Right.
I think that's a good Bermuda Triangle of like fun in terms of making sure that the place is bumping or chill when it needs to be.
Right.
Uh,
So my if you're asking skill wise, my skill is mostly knowledge,
Mm.
rather than skill with any particular equipment.
and obviously, it has worked because you've been at this for a very, very long time,
I have.
right? And it would be remiss of me to we have I want to talk about the other side of the Ron Fresh Prince of Darkness coin, but it would be remiss of me to kind of like ask, in the decades that you've been in this,
Yeah, we said a couple of
months in
that I've
the
been doing this.
in the most recent experience that you have with this art form, what has been the give us a couple of crazy stories of the places that you've played at and experienced and this because New York nightlife is wild, and it's been it and the spots that you've mentioned aren't they're not legends for no reason, right?
Right. The Limelight was just, it was its own animal. The stories I probably, those who are familiar with the Limelight would know.
Mhm.
My stories would be just like, of course, that happened all the time. Those who didn't know would be like, holy crap, how did that place even exist? Just sex, drugs, rock and roll.
And it was
A lot of it not behind closed doors,
just out in the open. It's very New
I
York.
mean, not
that's true.
super sex, but
Yeah.
it wasn't a sex club,
Yeah.
but just
Close enough.
drugs
right?
and rock and roll,
Yeah.
however,
Yeah.
out in the open.
But if I'm not mistaken, like Limelight, East Village, 23rd Street, right?
Right.
Old church,
Chelsea was a deconsecrated church
which is
that is now a gym.
the last time I was there was kind of like a market, like a lot of small stores in it.
Oh, I do remember that too. And I think there's also a pizza place that operates out of that. And that's like, yeah.
Well, that very New York, but that's that's how it is, and that's why we try to do multiple things so that you can have experiences like this. And speaking of that, again, you've mentioned off top of the pod, like you do a lot of DJing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not your full time day job.
Correct.
Right? How does the IT world either work with or push forward your night job? Like how do you meld that, or is it just this is what I do in the day and this
I
is what
mean,
I do in the night?
familiarity with technology to where, I know what I'm doing with what I'm doing. And if I'm having a technical difficulty, I can work around it in ways that people who aren't super familiar with the technology can.
Yeah. And you mentioned IT, and then this is not just like IT software, like your expertise also
I'm on the infrastructure side. So I do network engineering, cybersecurity, the whole
which
that end.
kind of in my end, it's like, all right, that might not be 1:1, but if you know how to work your way around networking, work your way around wires, if you're in an unfamiliar place and things are funky.
Well, it goes back to my experience as a hacker, where it's become a bad word where people are familiar with hackers as criminals. The basis of hacking is figuring out ways around obstacles.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's a hack. It could be just like a life hack.
Right.
It could be a little
So you come up against a problem, you fix it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's always something that I like bringing up with my friends in the pod. How most of us that do some form of passion that we may or may not have some lucrative payments around it is we're like we have day jobs. Most of us have multiple jobs too. So it's always good that to see how this supports both ends, right?
Back in the day, I worked for a company, and the biggest challenge when you have the day job is balancing the. When you're doing nightlife, you're coming home at 3-4 in the morning, and then the day job wants you there at 9. And in the IT world, you can fudge it to like 10 or 11, but you're still like sleeping 4 or 5 hours. So that was a big challenge, and that my 20s and 30s was easy for me. And since I started my own company, My boss doesn't mind if I come in late.
Oh yeah, you're the boss. That's the
But
plan.
I don't know that I could work a day job and do that
Mhm.
at this point because it's just it's taxing.
Yeah, I hear a lot. I mean, that's I think a main through line across all people that are working on their passions is like, if you do have a day job, or you have multiple jobs just to get by, it's a lot of time management, and it's a lot of like
Very much so.
physical, very taxing things on your body too. So,
Right.
that's why I like speaking with people with your breadth of experience because like you've been doing it a while. So
Right.
some people might have quit a little bit earlier if either the day job is a little bit too busy or the night job was not as fulfilling enough. So people that have done it for multiple years, multiple decades means that okay, it's thriving in more ways than one.
The thing is, I know I've noticed a lot of the performers who drop out because daytime responsibilities, but also there's it's becoming a job,
Mhm.
and so it becomes daunting, and then you have to your costumes and whatever. Uh, what I'm doing, as I said before, is just expressing my love of music.
Awesome.
So that's not going away, and I mean, the most daunting thing is making sure I can keep my sets current and I'm not playing, 80 sets all the time. But other than that, like it's easy for me because it is what I love to do, and it's never become a job for me.
You're gonna do it regardless of
Right.
whether you have 6 people in the audience or like a full Brooklyn Bowl
Right.
venue packed.
I actually had, if we want to talk about memorable gigs, last week,
Mhm.
for the first time, I DJ'd on a float in the village Halloween
Oh,
parade.
congratulations!
And I'm not big on crowds. I don't like
Same.
I like festivals, I like
Mhm.
whatever, but like when the crowds there's more than 1 million people there.
It is one of the biggest parades in New York.
I was there in attendance once and I hated it.
Mhm.
It was just so crowded, it was terrible. And when I was asked to do the gig, I was like,
You're gonna float.
the money was good. It was on a float. I figured that'd be different. I think that's the most fun gig I've ever had.
Amazing.
The most fun.
You're on a float on the New York City Halloween parade.
Exactly.
God damn, that's so fun. How did that come about?
Jen Gapay, who does the Burlesque Fest, was producing some floats for the parade, and she asked me to be one of the DJs.
That's delightful.
It's just a lot of fun because again, you're tailoring what you're playing to the people who are on the float because you want them to be dancing and screaming and doing their thing. But also, you've got speakers pointed out to the sides, turned up to 11. So you want to make sure the crowd is moving as well.
How long was that gig?
I think we left at 7:45, and we got to 17th Street at about 9:30, 10.
Oh, okay. Not too bad.
Not too long, but I mean, it's a slow moving float, but still, like
that is a New York City performer bucket list. Then
it is.
That is so dope. Well, speaking of memorable things, I want to talk about memorable images because in the end, this is still a
because you're a photographer.
Photographer podcast.
That's what you care about.
That's all I care about. But what I do with my guests is I ask them for their favorite images. No context, just like, hey, what are your favorite images? Let's discuss it. So some people take images of themselves. Some people take images of their inspirations and whatnot. Right now on your screen, I'll post.
I thought you meant it was images of me.
Oh, there you go. It's part of the experience. So Ron sent me a couple of his favorite images. So you're gonna see it on your screen right now.
Images of myself because that's what I thought that.
Hey, that's
part
part
what
of
I thought the assignment was.
That's part of how we kind of like see what people just react to.
Right.
But also like before we discuss this awesome image you're seeing right now, who shot it, what it looks like, why it's one of your favorite images, where did the Fresh Prince of Darkness come about? Who coined this moniker?
That came about when I was in the goth scene. of course, you need something spooky,
Mm.
but I also have a very silly side. And in fact, the silly side is more prevalent than
Mm-hmm.
the spooky side. Spooky on the inside,
There you go.
as they say. So it was basically a play on the Prince of
But
Darkness, Dracula, and the Fresh
Fresh Prince of
Prince. So kind of put them together, and then you have what I'm all about.
Well, and again, for the longest time, because like when you and I converse or when I tag you in images when during gigs or after gigs, it's always like Ron FPoD, Ron FPoD, Ron
Right.
FPoD, and then I think it was months until somebody on stage mentions like Fresh Prince of Darkness. Like, who's French Prince of Darkness? It's like Ron is like
People often
bright and bubbly.
people will often leave a part of that out, and then suddenly it's not a joke anymore.
Yeah.
Because they'll say, "Oh, the Fresh Prince," and I'm like, "No, that's somebody else. I'm gonna get a cease and desist."
Yeah.
Or the Prince of Darkness. I'm like, it's taking myself way too seriously.
Yeah, but this is great. So
Although
uh,
I've got to say, my favorite mistake on my name, um, and it's somebody who knew my name very well, and she was just in the moment and just. Darlinda once referred to me as the French press of dark roast.
I think you should go with that
I
nowadays.
couldn't stop laughing at that one.
I think that should be the next iteration. The Instagram handle still works,
Yeah, it does.
right? It still works. So I think it works. But okay. I'm gonna describe it first and then you let me know like why this first image, because we have two, which is great at this point, is it's just a high key black and white uh you know half body shot, just arms crossed with some graphic design behind it, showing off FPod, Fresh Prince of Darkness, a little tag on the top right side, a little like a price tag because it looks like a vinyl record. So tell me about this image, and then why is this one of your favorite images?
That one was shot by David Bird.
One
Shout out to David Bird.
staple again of also of like nightlife photography here.
Nightlife photography, yeah.
Mhm.
And it was shot right around my 50th birthday.
Oh,
So things that I like about this image is that number one, I don't look 50, which is awesome.
yeah. I figured like this was like
Um,
25 years ago.
And number two, David had a good read of me and my aesthetic,
Mm.
and that concept was his idea of basically recreating the Iggy Pop blah 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 record cover.
See, I didn't even know that that's a blob an Iggy Pop vinyl record
Yeah.
album cover.
So, and again, Iggy Pop very much one of my musical idols.
Mhm.
I don't know that David knew that, but he read me well enough to kind of
That's awesome.
put this together as a good read of me. And when we talked about it, I was like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. That was great.
That's,
So it's got the two things. It's a representation of what and who I am, and also a moment of significant moment in time for me.
that's awesome. It's apart from being a solid photograph, the graphic design in and around it meant something, is inspired by something. So for other people it might be also familiar, but also like, again, it's a vinyl record, kind of like plays into
Right.
your DJ things, kind of super
Right.
duper cool. Well, shout out to David Bird, right? I mean, he's done so many amazing shots for so many people in the burlesque and knife light scene. I'm sure if you guys, we'll tag him as well so that he knows that Ron gave a shout out. But it's also one by one format, so this is perfect for nowadays for
the gram.
Instagrams, right? That's kind of like one of those things where like,
Well, because that was the proportion of a record
Yeah.
cover.
which is pretty awesome, and it for most people, including myself, a very difficult ratio to shoot in,
Right.
So even when like when Instagram auto crops it
Crops.
for the wall, I always would check if we can like move the angle to where it fits the most. But like, yeah, square format, very difficult. But yeah, in the context of a vinyl record, makes total sense. So it's like that's great for the first favorite image. And now we have the second image. Now this time I will let you describe it, and let's talk about why this image is important enough for you to share with me as well.
Um, I'm on my motorcycle on the FDR.
Mm.
We were on a group ride that day, and there was a guy who absolutely insane, and I never got his name. He was part of the group, and I didn't know him. He was friend of a friend of a friend or
Mhm.
whatever. But the image got sent to me. But he was actually driving his motorcycle
That was my next
as he
question.
was taking these pictures, and I was just like, that's crazy.
With a full camera, with a phone, with
No, with an actual SLR.
Ooh. So yeah. When was this taken?
Uh,
Fairly recently.
no, it's like 2 or 3 years back. I
Okay,
think.
okay. So it's at least it's not a film wind up
No,
camera.
no, no. It was a digital.
There's a digital
Yeah.
camera, but not one of those like pocket sized digital cameras,
Right.
like a full on by another person on their bike.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So why I chose this one? Number one, because the means of photography was
Mhm.
just insane. But in terms of one's passions in life and
Mhm.
what one loves, I've been riding a motorcycle since 1996
There you go.
and have most of the awesome adventures I have to tell you about my life
Mm.
involve a motorcycle in one
Yeah.
way or the other.
Awesome.
So this kind of shows me, and because it shows me in motion, it basically, that's a picture of me in my happy place. That's what I look like in my happy place.
And that's something that we actually even touched upon as well. Again, we have a lot of passions, a lot of things that make us, and in certain circles you're only seen as XYZ, like you're the DJ for this, you're doing the IT for this company, but like Happy Ron is Ron on a bike.
It is.
That's awesome. And I know off pod, like personally, I know that are you still in the process of getting your next bike?
Yeah, so my motorcycle was stolen in February.
Yeah.
And it was actually the second motorcycle in 2 years that I've had stolen. Thank you, New
New
York.
York.
And it was at in a period where I was sort of bootstrapping a new business division
Mhm.
on my company. So I really haven't had the available cash to get the
Mhm.
new one. Finally hitting the point where I am going to be getting one, and I have a certain amount of brand loyalty.
Oh, I see in this photo, I can still see the Triumph.
Yes, that's a Triumph Tiger 1200.
Mm-hmm.
My first bike was a Triumph Adventurer back in '96,
Mhm.
and that's more the street bike
Mhm.
model. And I quickly realized that I like to travel distances, and that didn't have a decent luggage package.
Mm.
And also, I ride in New York City, so your average street bike has a short suspension, and every pothole you hit,
You're gonna feel in the back.
it basically takes a kidney out,
Yeah.
takes a year off your life in terms of kidney use. Um, the Tiger is a dual sport. It has a longer suspension
Mhm.
travel. I do a little bit of off-road riding, not much, but the suspension travel comes in handiest on the BQE.
Mhm.
And it's got the luggage on it that I can use not only for long road trips, but also like
Staley.
doing the groceries
Mhm.
every week
Oh, yeah.
and going and getting stuff. I go to meetings in that. My briefcase goes in there, the whole nine.
Yeah, and that's another point of conversation when we were starting to get to know each other. Because, like, back in the Philippines, I used to ride with my dad, and although I was more of like a street, more of like a ninja type, a sport bike
Mhm.
kind of aficionado, you know, because initially I was sharing the bike with my dad before I got my own bike, which is a hand me down of his bike. He's a lot older, so it's a cruiser, and yeah, there is luggage space. You have saddlebags to put things in there, so it's
There,
a lot more comfort and utility.
I mean, New York City living, as you know, like what you leave the house with at the beginning of the day is what you have to carry around with you. What you're doing that night is what you have to carry around with you that day.
That day.
So having that luggage capacity to be able to store things and not just carry everything on my
Mhm.
shoulder is great. Um, and also just if I could afford to have multiple motorcycles, at one point I could, and I had a, Ducati Monster.
Oof.
I love that thing. It was so great. It was a really great ride, but the least practical motorcycle I've ever owned.
You're hunched over
That's a great second bike.
yeah, for like a Sunday ride,
Right.
like, or like a midnight ride too.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about New York, and the main thing that the motorcycle has also always represented for me, is that you get bogged down in the city, you get your city life, you get your concrete, your garbage piles on the sidewalk. You hop on a bike, and in 45 minutes, you're in the middle of the Catskills.
Yeah.
Beautiful rivers, beautiful mountains, curvy roads, and that was where the Monster shined or shone.
Yeah,
was on those kinds of roads.
but in again, just being a responsible person here, like we both ride, but I've never ridden in the States. I don't have as much of an impetus to ride in New York, not because of the roads. For me, it's the weather. Like, there's going to be a solid 3 or 4 months where, at least for me, it'll be too cold for me.
Yeah,
For me,
yeah.
like you've probably adapted to, and you have enough cold weather gear to use it.
When I have a motorcycle, I ride year round.
That's what,
January and February are the uncomfortable months.
oof. It's uncomfortable in a car.
Yes, and those during those months, it's all in city riding, just because they're always doing work on the F train, or if I'm going to a DJ gig, to come home at night, the train's going to take 30 minutes to get there or whatever. So it's all in city riding, and then during the spring and fall are my favorite times for distance trips.
So that's all. I mean, like this is, these are the things that kind of like makes entire persons. Like, there's multiple things that we are passionate about, and again, it's a good kind of like tail end to the conversation that we kind of end with, and the image of you that you mentioned yourself. It's like you in your happy place, and that's, I think, an important factor, or the most important factor, why we do the things that we do. You make your music, I take pictures, is like we want to either make that environment where more people can be in their happy place, or at least on my end, hopefully capture that in a particular segment. All right. But this is, though, I am excited to kind of have you get your next bike, right? Get back to the super duper mobile Ron.
I'm sure the bike thieves are too.
The insurance must be like hiking up now because of all of that.
Because I haven't actually identified what I want to buy, I haven't spoken to my insurance company, but I'm almost worried they're going to say I'm uninsurable because of the 2 in a row.
But if it's like if it's proven it was stolen, it was stolen. Like, you're probably just gonna pay
be
more
like,
premium.
well, apparently Brooklyn, you're gonna get your bike stolen. And I'm on some Facebook motorcycle groups, and apparently 2024 has been one of the highest bike thefts year in New York City in a long time.
That is wild. I mean, I guess the market is getting there now. People are getting their own personalized motor vehicles in terms of transportation.
Generally, bikes are stolen for parts, so they can part them out. The Tiger 1200 looks a lot like the BMW GS 1200, and I'm convinced that the thieves in both situations thought they got the BMW, because that's way more common than mine.
Interesting.
And I think they get mad when they get back to the shop, and they're like, "Oh no, really? Nobody's gonna buy the parts for this."
Well, maybe they just need to bring it back. It's like, oh, my bad, my guy. We thought it was BMW. Like, just don't get a BMW next time, all right? But Ron, like, we've gone through like your stuff. Love hearing about IT during the day, Fresh Prince of Darkness at night, riding the motorcycle. For the freedom in between. We talked about a couple of like amazing images, both by Ben and also your anonymous friend Dave. and recklessly taking your photo while riding.
Correct.
Uh, we don't we don't condone that,
No, we don't.
but
But it's
if
badass.
but it's badass, and if you do it, share the photos. That's cool, right? Um, uh, Before we end, I just want you know people to know where they can find you, where they can reach out if they need like a badass DJ for an event or a float, right? Where
I'm
can people find Ron FPoD?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Ron FPoD, FPoD. And I am every first Friday at Amor Loco.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Times
in
Square.
Times Square. There's a wonderful burlesque show, and Amor Loco is a Mexican restaurant that has some of the best nachos ever,
Ooh,
and a great steak,
oh,
steak and French fries.
nice.
Really good. I know that's not doesn't sound very Mexican, but it's cooked
Well,
in Mexican style.
there you go.
And then every second Thursday, I'm at Beauty Bar for the nudie show. And then, if you're at Burlesque Fest on a Friday or Sunday, there I am.
And Ron pops up, and there's going to be more shows here and there.
Right. And then,
pop up.
the one-off shows here and there I do.
So make sure to follow Ron, check out his work, say hi when you're at shows. It's going to be fun. He doesn't bite that hard. All right, so it's going to be cool.
Only consensual.
He'll ask, or if you ask, he might do it. And again, this is the Fun Street podcast drops monthly, usually the first Friday of the month, where I bring in image makers, light shapers, artists like here, Ron, friends that I've met through sharing our passions at night around New York. It's always fun hearing about all these things that people do, the multiple jobs, so that you can do the deep job that you really, really want to do and share happiness and joy and your passions to other people. So please like and subscribe, youtube.com/LJong. My socials are all at LJong, EL_JONG. And would love to see you again in the next video. So thank you very much. On behalf of Ron, thank you very much for coming. Bye.